We were watching that, doing that, trying to listen in, and Bernie, just the very, very large Great Pyrenees Mountain Dog, had a good time, I think, as well.
Well punctuated.
Yes.
So happy to have Bernie part of our league here somewhat. All right, so today at the stadium, three coordinators took their respective turns telling everybody what they think of the job before them. What are a couple of the more interesting things you think you might have learned today?
I mean, I thought Jim Leonhard was super interesting. I think also just because maybe we were most interested in him of the three coordinators. So, um, you know, it's so funny. How long have us three here been talking about positionless players in football,
You
right? I mean, it
certainly
goes back
have.
a long time,
You
right? We
certainly have.
no doubt we have talked about this a lot. I've brought it up many times. You guys have. We've had discussions about this going way back when to when really, I mean, I maybe first started in this role and just how football has evolved. And he really leaned into that today. And I thought that was interesting just to kind of come full circle on this and where we are in
Yeah.
football. And, my specific question to him was basically, hey, 3-4-4-3, it meant a lot different, things back 20 years ago when you started coaching. How about now, though? Like, how do you see that? And he said, yeah, I mean, football has evolved to a point where he compared it to NBA basketball and said positionless players, basically. Everybody can do everything. And he expanded on that. It was super interesting. I wrote about it at WGR550.com. I love the quotes he gave. But specifically what I liked was he said, and I followed up and said, how do you put stress on an offense by doing that? Like, you got all these guys do everything, but then how do you stress an offense? And he said, because if you can use 11 guys all on a down to down basis, just the same 11 guys, first down, second down, third down, the offense has no idea what's happening because they can do so many things and you can be very creative, and they have to really react post snap because you can change everything from a play to play basis. I just thought that was super interesting.
Yeah, I like that basketball got mentioned. That
Yeah.
basketball probably was on the front end of the curve of positionless play. I think hockey. I mean, we're seeing this Sabres team right now. This current edition of the Sabres, the defensemen play like forwards all the time on this team. And in football, it's one of the reasons I was so attracted to Nick Emenworry last year in the draft, because I thought he had the best chance to be a guy like that in the NFL that could play safety or slot corner or I don't know, linebacker.
Yeah. I mean, it is interesting. And another thing he said was, he said he believes he's been at his best as a coach using those guys, using guys that, the way he put it, don't fit into a box. He said he's had the most success as a coach when he's had guys that don't fit into a box and they can do a lot of different things. That's kind of his strength. It's his specialty. And I love that, to hear that from somebody, right? It's not saying, yeah, scheme this and scheme that and defensive back or whatever. He's a safety. Said, I've been very good at understanding how to use these guys. And I think I really like that from him. So that was super interesting. Attacking from both ends, the front and the back. We always hear about attacking defenses, as you brought up last week, Mike, right? Like this,
Yep.
that's what coordinators say. But, the proof is in the pudding where this guy's been. I mean, he's been with Denver, and they got after the quarterback a lot the last 2 years. He's played and coached. He played, I should say, under Rex Ryan. We know that was a calling card of Rex Ryan. So I do believe that truly is his philosophy, being attack mode all the time, but being able to do it with these guys who can kind of really move around the ball and the spots. And he said, hey, look, things are going to change. They're going to have some changes in personnel, no doubt. But he also said you got a lot of pieces here that are already pretty versatile, basically.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to ask you. Is like, what did you get an indication, an early one at that? I doubt there would be any specifics at this early juncture, Sal. But yeah, just how much he feels he has to work with here.
He's of course going to give high marks to the current roster, right? We know that. That's just what coaches do. They come in. We got a lot of good players here. Plus, this has been a very successful roster, no doubt. So he was, yeah, I believe. Let me go back in. Yep, he said, I didn't realize this. Bobby Babich was one of his last position coaches in the NFL. Bobby Babich coached Jim Leonhard. He said, I have a lot of respect for Coach Babich and what he's built here, and Coach McDermott for what he's built here. He said specifically both those two. And he didn't like volunteer any names. Like, I can't wait to see what Michael Hoyt can do in this defense, right? Anything like that. But he was specifically asked, like Cole Bishop, about him. And hey, you played safety. What do you think about Cole Bishop? He said he was a big fan of Cole Bishop coming out of college, actually. He said he does a lot of the things that plays the game the way I wanted to play the game as a safety, being able to play back, play in the box. He is very versatile like that. He was also asked about Taron Johnson. He's made contact with him. He's already had conversations. We'll see where that goes, though. We don't know what plans the Bills have over the next couple of weeks or whatever, because they got to make some decisions. There was somebody else he specifically talked about. Christian Benford. And that was another one. Versatile. He can do, he's a guy that he has traveled before. He can play zone. He can play man. So there's definitely, I think, to him, enough pieces here to start to mold the way he wants to play football.
Babich would have been Leonhard's coach in Cleveland.
Yes.
The last year of Leonhard's career, which is interesting because Leonhard is older than Babich by like less than a year, but still, there's going to be more of that maybe because Brady is 36.
That's right.
So he might end up with a player older than he is. All right, that's kind of covered what they sort of need on defense, even though, of course, we're at a very, very early stage. I mean, I'm not going to go back through the archives, but, yeah, I mean, defensive coaches are always talking about aggressiveness. I wonder if Wade Phillips maybe didn't talk like that. He might have been more just sort of he's so laid back. He might not have been somebody who was trying to impress everybody with how aggressive his defenses were going to be. Greg Williams, quintessentially. He just loved talking about the 46, right, Sal? And just like how aggressive they were always going to be. And that is most guys. So offensively, I mentioned this, I think, already this week, but you two had a conversation last week where you were asked, Sal, what Pete Carmichael will do as an offensive coordinator that isn't calling plays. And he offered more perspective on that today.
Yeah, he did. And as I said last week, and as Joe Brady said to Matt Bove and I on the podcast we do always Game Day in Buffalo, we asked him the same question, but we asked from Brady, what does an offensive coordinator do when you're not calling plays? And he said, be ready to call plays. So kind of be the guy that thinks like me, be ready to take over for me. And in that role, he's got to be in the same, wavelength of him all the time. And Pete Carmichael said the same thing, but he basically said, look, when Joe is out of the room, I have to convey the same message he is, right? I just think Pete Carmichael came off to me today as a very loyal, good soldier, if you will. You know what I mean? Like a guy that understands he's not there for his ego. He's not there to be the play caller. He's not there to be the head coach. That ship might have sailed for his career many years ago. He's there to support the guy that he's working with and working for and be the best he can be at that job. And that's kind of what he said today. Like what Joe wants, I got to do. Like what his message is, that's got to come from me because he's not going to be in that room all the time. He's not going to be in the quarterback drills all the time, which was really interesting. I did think one other super interesting thing he was asked that he said, we all know by now Aaron Kromer basically ran the run game last year, right? I mean, that's been talked about. We know that. Aaron Kromer did a lot with that. He was asked, hey, will you be a part of that? And he said that's still going to be the offensive line coach. So we see how this is structured for the Bills now, which is Joe Brady runs the offense. He's going to have a big say in how the passing game goes. He's still going to lean on the offensive line coach for the run game piece of that a lot. Now, I'm not saying he's going to call the plays from the run game, but it feels like that similar structure will be in place.
And that's a veteran coach, right? That they hired there. I forget the name now, but that was
Pat Meyer.
Week. Right. Yeah. This is sort of pertinent. I don't think it's from today, but that anyone said today. But I think I read a quote from Brady, sort of addressing this, like, what does Carmichael do? And Brady basically said, like, if I have to be involved in something else, whether that's game management or something with the defense, then he's got to be ready to sort of pick up and follow kind of the thread that we've been developing through the game, try to stay on track, that kind of thing. I've never heard that before, and I just wonder how often that happens with a head coach that is a play caller on either side of the ball, where, they're in the middle of something, and it's like something else that takes your attention away comes up, and you've got to, like, defer to an assistant coach.
I agree. I don't know if it's ever actually happened, but it could, right? I mean, it could. Maybe there's a situation where, kind of middling it here, Bulldog, which is, and I think Joe talked a little bit about this with Jeremy and Joe yesterday in a different way, which is he's thinking maybe 2 steps ahead. So maybe there's a 4th down decision coming up that he has to think about, right? I'm just spitballing here and like, okay, he's going to lean on Pete Carmichael to say, all right, look, we got 2 downs here. What do you think, right? What do you like? Let me think about what I want to do on 4th down. Give me something good here, Pete, on 3rd down to get me to a 4th and short I can make. Maybe that's something he can do as well, right? I don't really know, but you're right. I don't know if I've ever heard of well, I'm in the middle of a game and I couldn't call plays. So I had to pass it off to the other guy. But certainly that's got to be his role. The other part about it, I did ask Brady, you never know from team to team if he's going to be up top, he's going to be down low. I got the sense that Pete Carmichael will be up in the press box, and that'll be kind of his role to, help Joe Brady from up there to give him a little bit more detail and understanding, because Joe is so used to calling plays from upstairs.
Yeah, right.
Joe's got to do it downstairs now.
That might be I don't know. I mean, he could say. I mean, that seems like that would be an adjustment.
Yes, for sure. And he did. He said, actually, when we talked to him a couple of weeks ago, he said, yeah, you don't get the full scope of where the ball is all the time when you're on the field. That is an adjustment. He's kind of been in both. And he said, for example, like, where is it, left hash or is it, middle left hash, right? Where the ball is. Like, you got to be able to see everything on the field. And from up top, you can do that. So that is an adjustment, and he said it might take a couple extra seconds to make sure you get that right when you're on the field versus when you're up top.
If for any reason you as Miss America cannot fully perform your duties, the runner-up will take over. Carmichael is that in case Brady becomes indisposed or is distracted by something. Do you have any particular sense of his style? Is it fully a reflection of Brady? Carmichael is almost a generation older than Brady. They're both in New Orleans. Interestingly, perhaps, Carmichael becomes the offensive coordinator of the Saints when Doug Marrone leaves for Syracuse. He was in that position, and then Carmichael moved up. But he was there 20 years and then was in Denver with Sean Payton again. I mean, I think of Sean Payton, he's got to be some extension of him, Sal. Like, it's short passes and passes to the running backs. Maybe we should expect more. Can we bet it? Can we draft him? More catches for James Cook in 2026. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, an extension that way maybe of what he did. But look, I mean, today he talked about, I asked him the same question I asked Leonhard, which is evolution of offensive football, not defensive. Like, and specifically, I was trying to kind of pin him down to give me a specific answer on, like, I even said, like, what is it about the evolution of offensive football that you think has changed so much? Is it tight ends maybe, running backs catching the ball in the backfield? He went right to mobile quarterbacks. Like he said, when he coached, Drew Brees is pocket. Like, you're in the pocket. The explosion of mobile quarterbacks, guys who can move, guys who can run, that you have to be able to adapt your offensive style to accommodate that. And obviously he's been able to do that. He's had to do that. I mean, look, I went back and looked. This guy coached under Norv Turner, obviously under Sean Payton. He's had Marty Schottenheimer, I think he was with, right, in San Diego. I mean, so he's been around a lot of different coaches here. So I don't know, Mike. I think, Sean Payton is one that you can, but he's had a lot of different guys that he's learned under and had a lot of different experiences with.
Schottenheimer in Washington in 2001, and maybe he went to San Diego. He did, and Carmichael would have gone with him from Washington to San Diego when Steve Spurrier takes over Washington in 2002. What do you have on Jeff Rogers?
That his name is actually Jeff. It is not Jeffrey on his birth certificate, because I asked him, would you like to be called Jeff or Jeffrey? He said, well, it's not Jeffrey on my birth certificate. So there you go. It's just Jeff.
So what do his friends call him? What is short for Jeff?
Well, he did say his grandma, I think, or his mom or his grandma called him Jeffrey when, she wanted to get his attention. So even though it's not his name, he did say that, which was interesting.
Okay.
He's been a special teams guy his whole life. He's never coached a position. He's really been a special teams coach his whole life. He's been around all of the changes in special teams throughout his career, which is super interesting. He was very upfront about the fact that, look, he just got here. He doesn't even know Joe Brady all that well. They're working through, because they might have had a couple connections here or there, but these are not guys that work together. So they're starting their relationship here kind of a little bit from scratch and getting to know what Joe wants, what he wants. He's been in Arizona the last 8 years. The weather in Arizona versus Buffalo, the Dome Stadium, that's something. He said he actually just learned how the new stadium is built with the wind in mind, because he has to know those things when it comes to special teams, obviously. Like, these are really interesting things that these guys learn about when they get here to Buffalo, or, get a different position and different role that you don't think about that they probably have to learn.
Right.